So my goal at RB, which is the goal of all of the faculty and staff, is to help your student develop the skill set that they need to achieve their personal and academic goals, either while at RB or when they leave RB to continue on to pursue their career. But in addition to that, we also want to make sure that students are having the best experience possible while they're at RB. And sometimes in order to do that, it means that you're aware of the resources and support that we have at RBs in order to be able to capitalize on that and utilize that while your students are here, as opposed to you saying, well, I never realized that that program was in place, or that's the person I needed to talk to. So that's the goal of this presentation, is to make sure that you're aware of some of the supports that we have in place, but also to be able to identify, if you do have a question, who's the best person to contact in order to get that support and help that you need for your son or daughter. So I'm going to start kind of in the main office and then branch out from there. So Maura Kennedy is my administrative assistant, and the main office is really a hub for students, and it's very different than a lot of other schools. Usually the main office is very quiet and there are not a lot of students coming and going, and that's just very different here at RB. There's constantly students in there, and students know that if they have no idea where to go, that they can go to the main office. So Maura can answer any general questions, and then questions specifically related to senior awards, graduation, and graduation includes a variety of events, including cap and gown ordering, tickets, things of that nature. Also dance passes, so for students that are bringing a guest, parent-teacher conferences, senior picnics. She also helps out with student handbooks, so if your son or daughter lost their handbook, they can come here and get another one. And she's also the liaison between the alumni and any sort of reunion, so whether or not that's just posting information on our website about a request or a reunion that's occurring, but also just we have a lot of alumni tours that occur throughout the year, so she helps facilitate that as well. And then for those of you who are on the PTO, she's also the liaison between all of our, outside of the boosters, all of our parent organizations, whether it's the RBEF, the PTO, music sponsors. So anytime they need something, whether it's to check their mailbox or just posting information on our staff bulletin about things the staff need to be aware of. And then she also coordinates meetings for me with parents or students after they've had the opportunity to try to resolve that through typically starting with the teacher, and then also the instructional coach or another administrator as well. So she also does student of the quarter. So she does a variety of things, and the best part about the main office is that if they don't do it, they know where to guide you to. So the next person in the main office is also Tammy Mola. And Tammy Mola is the other administrative assistant, and she primarily works with the assistant principal of student affairs and also does a little assistance with the dean as well. And so she, because she works with the assistant principal of student affairs, can answer a lot of questions about clubs or activities. And then just general information as well about bell schedules, calendars, etc. Facility requests, so for example, the PTO requesting this facility, she can help facilitate that. Both internal groups and external groups. Parking permits is a big one. And then you can see all of the other questions that she typically helps out with as well. So between her and Maura, they can answer pretty much almost every question related to an event that we have going on at RB, or they can direct you to the right person. So I'm sure if you go home, all of your students have at least seen one of them. They might not know their name, they might get them confused, but I'm sure that they have seen either Miss Mola or Miss Kennedy. In the dean's office, which is new this year, we have 2 full-time deans. So we have Dave Sibley, who has always been our dean, and then Neil Dugetti has been an assistant dean in the past, and this is his first year as a full-time dean. And so now that we have 2 deans, they are collaborating with a specific group of students. So Dave Sibley collaborates with students whose last name begins with A through M, while Neil Dugetti collaborates with students whose last name begins with N through Z. So obviously they answer discipline-related questions in terms of detentions and suspensions as well. But also, they handle bullying. So if your son or daughter ever feels that he or she's been bullied or has a situation that they can't resolve with their peers or students in their class, they can either go and report it directly to them, or they can go on our website and report it anonymously. They can also report it to another staff member that they feel comfortable with, but if possible, this would be the place to start or fill out an anonymous bullying form. Heather Spry, which I'm sure if your son or daughter has ever been sick, I'm sure you've contacted or at least left a message for Heather. So in addition to absences, she kind of coordinates the lunch and Saturday detentions, mostly the communication piece to make sure that students are aware that they have a detention. But she also collects homework for extended absences. So if your son or daughter has either been hospitalized or has strep or mono or is going to be out for a period of time, she can contact the teachers and they can send work to her, and then you can come in and pick that up if your son or daughter is able to work on that while they're home sick. And she's really good at making sure, when possible, that the teachers send work down so that they have something to work on. She also coordinates work permits, lockers, which some of the students takes a little bit to figure out who does lockers, but any sort of problem with lockers she assists with. And then service hours, and then she can also provide general information as well. Moving on is the Student Services Department. So this is a very big department with a lot of resources. So April Engelhardt is the administrative assistant for this, and we spend a lot of time helping students learn how to use Naviance, which is a program to explore the different options for colleges, but it can also be a great resource for parents as well. So if you don't know how to log in, or if you've forgotten your information, she can provide you with that. In addition to that, she also processes transcript requests, and transcript requests go to the student's counselor at first, and they process them and give them to her. But if you have general questions about not knowing where the form is, or whether or not she sent it out, she would be the person to ask. And then she also is a great resource for the evening programs. So our student services program runs 10 different evening programs, and they're all posted on the website, and then reminders are sent out as they're approaching as well in the district newsletter, and then e-blasts, and also student announcements. So there's 10 different programs for all ages. So I know that there's what all freshmen should know already happened this year, but there's financial aid, there's the college application process, there are a variety of things. I think there's at least one, probably about one a month, if not more than that, towards the beginning of the year. So she can answer any questions you may have about that, even provide you with a schedule. In addition to that, she does a lot of work with our incoming freshman group. So I know some of you said that you have an 8th grader or a student in junior high, and she works with the incoming families in terms of helping out with the placement test, which happens in December, but then also incoming freshman registration. She sits at the front of student services, so I know that all of your students know her as well, because they have to pass by her to see their guidance counselor. So these are our 5 guidance counselors. So your son or daughter is assigned to one of them. Renee Thomas is out right now on a maternity leave, so we have Gina Tower stepping in for her. And they provide a wealth of information, particularly coming up with the course registration process. So that starts in November, and I know it seems early, but in order to backtrack everything and make sure we have the appropriate staff for the next school year, and that we have the number of geometry sections we need and things of that nature, we have to start this early. And so what they do is they first meet with students in small groups and talk about the courses that are available to them, especially depending on where they are. If they're freshmen, there are a specific set of courses available to them, which looks very different than as if they're a senior. So they meet with them in small groups, but then they follow up and have an individual conversation with the student as they pick their classes. So at that point, that would be a good time for you to have a conversation with the student in between that initial group meeting and then that small meeting, which is just a one-on-one meeting with the counselor, to identify what courses your son or daughter wants to take. After that, we mail home course verification letters in the spring for you to sign off on and approve. But also if the student has to make any last minute decisions or changes, that's really their last opportunity to do that, because we use that to determine what classes we're offering and how many sections, so we know exactly what students are interested in taking. So that process starts in November. The sign-up time ends in January, and then probably in March, sometimes April, the course verification letters go out. So if you ever have any questions in regards to that process or what classes your son or daughter should take, they would be able to help you with that. Also, just in regards to scheduling college recommendations, service hours, and then standardized tests. So if you receive standardized test results or you have questions about the upcoming national ACT test and should your student take it, they would be the resource for that. They also have a separate, which is linked to our website, but they have a separate website which has a wealth of information, and sometimes it can be a little overwhelming. So if you feel like you can't find something on there, you can always reach out to April Engelhart, or Melissa Carey is the guidance counselor who facilitates that. Because they try to put a lot of information up there, and sometimes you want to make sure you're looking in the right spot so that you don't overlook something. They also help students, freshmen through juniors, really navigate the Naviance program. So I'm not sure freshmen have had the opportunity to do that yet. I believe that comes later on. But they work with the students with the Naviance program as well. Oftentimes, if a student too has an issue and they don't know where exactly to go, their guidance counselor is a good place to start. So if they're having trouble in a class and they don't feel comfortable going to a teacher, a guidance counselor can kind of help them navigate that process. Keeping in student services, we also have 2 social workers. And so social workers, in addition to providing individual support to students who are referred to them by the counselor, they also offer group support, and it's based on the needs of our students. So they have a few small groups this year, specifically for transfer students, students with executive functioning skills. So that's if your son or daughter does all of their homework, and you see them do it, but somehow it never makes it to school because it gets lost in their backpack or they leave it at home, and they really need help with that organizational structure, or things like writing down their assignments in their assignment notebook. So they help students that need help with executive functioning skills, and then this year also depression and grief support. So those students are usually identified through the guidance counselor as somebody who may need additional support through that. In addition, they are paired up specifically with guidance counselors. So if you feel like your son or daughter is having a variety of issues, and would like to talk to somebody at RB, so this could range from depression or anxiety, or if there's something going on at home and you just feel like they could benefit from talking to someone, maybe it's a divorce or a death in the family, anything along those lines, if you reach out to the guidance counselor, they can refer them to the appropriate social worker. Next, we have Mark, and Mark is from Pillars, so we use this licensed counselor to come into the building 2 days a week to provide support to about 15 students right now and their families. So this is a little more intensive support because these students need a little more help not only while they're at RB and dealing with their life circumstances, but also outside of RB. So this is an opportunity to really provide more wraparound services. Their services usually continue at Pillars as well. But it's nice because we have that resource at school for students who need it and need the support while they're in school as well. Hopefully within the next week or two, maybe a little longer than that, we will have a certified alcohol and drug counselor in the building 3 days a week from Rosecrans. And this is a position we used to have in the past, and are now able to bring the position back through a Title I grant. And so this will be able to provide students in the building who are struggling with either drug use or alcohol use to provide them with support in overcoming that addiction and overcoming that substance abuse. So we're very excited about this because in the past we've been relying on our social workers, and they've been stretched very thin in trying to help students that are having issues with drugs and alcohol, and providing some support for students who have other issues like depression. And so we're excited to have her. We're working through the paperwork, so hopefully that will be a resource within the next 2 weeks or so. Johanna Bruckner is our school psychologist, and in education, the school psychologist, especially here at RB, takes on a slightly different role. So she takes a much more of a building approach, and so she takes on a building approach in a few ways. So one thing is that she assists with the progress monitoring of students who are in some of our interventions, which is our reading class for freshmen and sophomores, and then our extended algebra. And then she also helps analyze test data as a building to make sure that if there are students that are not getting the support they need, we start to identify those students and see if they can be in interventions. She also helps raise awareness systematically to depression by speaking in the health classes, but then also Erica's Lighthouse, which is a non-for-profit organization that focuses on helping raise awareness of depression and suicide. And so that's an activity in the past, for those of you who are familiar with Christine Sutton, she ran it in the past, and so Johanna is running it this year. But that club is open to anyone who is interested in that. And then she collaborates with social workers too, from time to time, to focus on some of those individual groups that we have with students. I'm sure all of you are well aware that we have a nurse and a nurse's office, and hopefully your son or daughter has not visited it recently. It means they're healthy, but Allison Jackson is our nurse, and then Sharon Sedevy is the nurse's assistant. And so in addition to making sure that your son or daughter is healthy and is ready to go to class and learn, they also process physical examinations and immunizations. So if you're one of the parents that has been bombarded with a letter home saying your immunization record is incomplete, that's coming from them, and that's just something that we need to have on file. They also help with health plans. So if your son or daughter has diabetes, and it's just something that we need to make sure the teachers are aware of, or they use an EpiPen because they have an allergy, they're responsible for that and making sure that that's communicated. And then also school medication. So they do distribute medicine to students who have the form on file and have a doctor's note, and their parents have come and dropped that off. So there's a process outlined on the website, but this even includes medications such as Advil and ibuprofen. We can't administer that without having a doctor's note on file and permission. So that's one thing that they do. In addition to that, they do meet with parents if there's questions or concerns about a health plan or anything related to your son or daughter in regards to that. And they just ask, since there's one nurse, to try to schedule those before or after school so that they have their time freed up to meet with the students. The business office, I'm sure you all know, collects fees for summer school, summer courses in general, but also if they have to sign up for test preparation or standardized tests such as the PSAT, they do that. They also process free and reduced lunch applications. They replace student IDs if your son or daughter has ever lost one. It's required that they have one, and so they can go to the bookstore to replace it. And they also run the bookstore, which is open before school every morning, and then also during lunches twice a week. So if your student needs general supplies for something, or they need to replace their ID, they can go to the business office. And I know the business office is typically hard to find for the students, but it's just across, and for parents. It's kind of hidden, but it's really just across from the main office. Terry Kavanaugh is the administrative assistant for athletics. And so if your son or daughter plays a sport or is interested in playing a sport, she would be the person to reach out to. She collects physicals for the IHSA process. and then answers any general questions related to athletics. I know in the past there's been some concern or confusion, especially if you have a coach for your son or daughter's team that's out of the building and you're not sure how to contact them. And they all have RB emails, which is just their last name, first initial at rbhs.net. But there's also on their website a directory for all of the coaches. And if you, for some reason, ever are having difficulty contacting a coach that might not be a teacher that works at RB, Terry can make sure that she provides you with that information. And then just some general teacher information that I wanted to provide you, and then in addition to some other programs. So the general teacher information, the best way to contact teachers is via email. And that's not saying that you can't have a conversation with them over the phone or in person, but that's the best way to initiate the contact, because teachers don't have access to a private phone all day. Most of the classrooms don't have a phone, so there's one phone in the department office. So not only is it difficult for them to check their voicemail, but it's difficult for them, so they have 2 prep periods, to find a time where no one's in the department and they can actually answer your call. So it's best to send them an email to set up a time to talk if you do want to have a phone conversation, so that you are not playing phone tag back and forth with the teacher. And then we talked about if you do have a question or concern about one of your son or daughter's classes, to first talk to the teacher. 99% of the time, any sort of issue can be resolved or concern can be resolved with the teacher, and then sometimes a department or an instructional coach or an administrator. But most of the time, it's either a misunderstanding, a miscommunication, or something that can be resolved. It's very rare that there's an issue that can't be resolved. And one thing that your son or daughter might not tell you is that many, if not all, teachers post their weekly schedule of help availability in their classrooms. So typically, a student can walk in and see right away whether or not their teacher is available before school this week and what specific days, as well as after school. So they don't have to guess whether or not they show up after school and if their teacher is going to be available for help. The other question that comes up often is typically around final exam times. And because we give final exams before break, there's always a question as to, I have this trip planned, or I plan the surgery for my son or daughter right before break, so they would have to miss as little school as possible. Can they take the final exams early? And we do not make exceptions with that policy, and so students are not penalized if it's excused, and I think every absence has been excused, but students are not penalized, but they do need to take that final exam when they come back. And then the other things that are new this year that might help you would be Schoology. And so Schoology is something that we're just using this year, and it's up and running, and that's a resource for primarily students, but for you as well, in order to stay informed of what's occurring in your son or daughter's class. So some teachers are just using it to post assignments on the calendar. Other teachers are sharing a variety of classroom resources and expecting your son or daughter to do an online discussion, take an online quiz, a variety of different things. So that is a resource for you to try to keep up with what your son or daughter is doing in class and stay informed. And you should have all received information with how to log in. But if not, or you need that reset, there's information on our website of where you can go to do that. You can just email Schoology at rbhs208.net. But we're also providing at ParentTeacher Conferences an opportunity for you to learn more about it if you're interested. And so on the top of every hour, we're going to be providing about a 10-minute demonstration of Schoology. And then following that, there'll be a question and answer session and individual help and support if you need it with Schoology. And so we'll have student volunteers there as well, because I know at open house it was, we had a lot of parents show up and we didn't have enough people here to answer all of your questions. And so what better way to learn than from the students who utilize this on a much regular basis as well. So they'll be there to help. And then Skyward is the way to check your son or daughter's grades and attendance. And unfortunately, we do have to use two systems. These are two completely different systems. One is a learning management system and one is a student information system. And none of the learning management systems talk to the student information systems and vice versa yet. So no matter which programs you look at for student information systems and which programs you look at for learning management systems, in their true sense, none of them are talking to one another yet. And so obviously they're working on this, and different companies are trying to pair together. But that is why we have the two systems. And so on Parent-Teacher Conferences, if you also have questions about Skyward, they'll be able to answer those questions as well. And then some additional support and information that we have in place. So academic support primarily is targeted. We have, I believe, 4 or 5 sections that are targeted specifically for freshmen. And then we have other sections that are open to all students as well. But academic support is a smaller study hall that's in the classroom and not the cafeteria. And this teacher checks in on their grades and makes sure that students are reporting or recording information in their assignment notebook, tries to stay on top of them a little more. This environment is a little more unstructured because it provides the students an opportunity to also collaborate with their peers and use the computer. So if two students are struggling in algebra and there's a third one that's in the same class and understands what's going on, oftentimes you'll see the 3 of them working together to complete their homework and things of that nature. Whereas study hall down in the cafeteria is very quiet and students work individually. So that's the difference between the two. Academic support also serves, the teacher in there can serve as a liaison between that student and the other teachers. So for example, if Johnny's not doing his math homework, the academic support teacher can reach out to Johnny's teacher and say, you know, he hasn't been doing his math homework. Do you have his assignments? Can he come get them? Can he start making them up? So it's a little more accountability in regards to that. Within academic support for freshmen, we have a peer mentoring program which is called Students Together Achieving Results. And these mentors typically push in every other Friday, and this is an opportunity for the freshmen to hear from the upperclassmen advice on a variety of things. So getting involved in sports or activities, what to do if you're struggling in a class, you know, what to expect for homecoming, how to approach a teacher when they feel something was graded incorrectly. I mean, a variety of issues, because the students become very comfortable asking their peers for help on these issues, and they might be asking you the same thing at home, but they might not, even if you give the same answer, they might not believe you as much as the students because, you know, well, you're not in high school anymore, so you don't understand, but the students are telling them the exact same thing 9 out of 10 times, and it's different coming from them. So they have a very set structure every other week when they meet with them, but then there is also a time for questions as well, and the teacher is monitoring that. In addition to that, we have HOPE, which is Helping Others Pursue Excellence, which is an adult-to-peer mentoring program that we target our sophomores. We have a lot of support for our freshmen with our intervention classes and academic support. We don't have as much with the sophomores. And so this program pairs teachers and staff and administrators who volunteer to mentor a sophomore student. And they meet with them, depending on the student, typically on a weekly basis. And the primary goal is, again, to help them realize all of the resources that are in place in RB that they're not taking advantage of, such as NHS, tutoring. But it's also an opportunity for somebody else, in a way, to be somewhat of a parent figure to the students. So, you know, did you do your homework? No, I see you have 3 missing assignments. Oh, well, I talked to Mr. Johnson and he said you could still make those up. So why don't you, go to see him and get the assignments and make it up, and I'll follow up with you in 2 days to make sure that you've done it. So it provides them a little more accountability at school, which is the exact same thing that you all try to do at home, but sometimes it can be a little more difficult or time consuming. We try to help provide that structure to students while they're at school, and then help the student develop more responsibility so that eventually students are taking ownership for that, and the goal is by third, fourth quarter that the mentor and mentee don't have to meet every week because the student has developed those skill sets to reach out for help and to stay on top of their homework and things like that. National Honor Society, I wish more students would take advantage of the tutoring that they provide. And so there's Tuesdays and Thursdays after school, and Wednesdays and Fridays before school. And there's always students there ready to help in a variety of subjects. And even if you feel, or if you have a student who thinks that nobody's going to be there to help them with calculus, you can reach out to Miss Mina, who facilitates the program. And traditionally then they would make sure that, oh, you want to come in on a Thursday, we can try to find somebody who can come in on a Thursday to make sure that they can help you with a more advanced topic. So they're really able to help with a variety of subject areas. And it's a great resource that a lot of our students don't use as much as they should. For those of you who have juniors, I know you said we have a variety of parents who have juniors. We have an RB prep class, so even if your son or daughter is enrolled in CAP or either first semester or second semester, the RB prep class is a good opportunity. So there's 3 different options, and this is before school option, an after school option, or a Saturday option, and provides additional support and lessons regarding how to take an ACT test. And those will start in January, and information will be sent home probably early November. But that's a great opportunity because it's really cheap. I believe it's around $150, and other organizations will charge a lot more for a test prep class. So, and these are teachers that are very familiar with the test. And then in addition to, the library is open before and after school, and that's a great resource for students to have a quiet place to study, to use the computers, but then also to get research assistance. If your son or daughter has a research paper and doesn't really know where to begin, we have a variety of databases online. We also have a whole research section set up in the library for students to go on, look at the databases, and to have the librarians kind of walk them through that on a one-to-one basis to get the help that they need. And that's incredibly important, not only a skill that they're going to use at RB, but also in college as well. And then lastly, I just wanted to say that there are a variety of ways to stay informed. So for those of you who don't subscribe to the daily student bulletin, that's one option. The district newsletter went out today, and that's a great way to stay informed of some of the events too. I know in my message I sent out something about the new app, which is called Street Chat, which just came out last week, that a lot of students are using, and so providing information regarding that. But then also syncing your calendar and adding our Google Calendar for the school to get reminders. And then the new website has a wealth of information to utilize. So with that, are there any questions?
With the college applications, does Naviance have the capability for teachers to submit a recommendation and that goes into the application process? Do they have to do it by hand?
I know the recommendation process is typically done through a Common App now, which is a website, and I don't know if there's a link on Naviance or not, but mostly they're done electronically now. Mm-hmm.
And then just recently I just heard that teachers contractually don't have to post grades for 15 days. And so I just wanted to confirm whether that was true. Usually that doesn't happen, but I just wanted to confirm if that was true, that 15 days contractually before they have to post their grades.
Yes, and last year our old contract was nothing contractually. So yes, it is 15 days, but most of our teachers update them much more frequently, and if something is not updated, I would suggest that you reach out to the teacher instead of having to wait for those 15 days, to reach out to the teacher and send an email and ask if you have specific questions or concerns about your student.
To understand too, because if something's not graded and they're waiting to find out, and they don't care about the teacher contract with that, so it's kind of hard for them to understand that piece of it. So hopefully that explains for the class.
Yeah, and sometimes too, some assignments are obviously easier to grade than others. With English teachers, you're going to see a bigger lag in terms of grading papers and things of that nature. But I would encourage you, if you have a situation where you know, your son is feeling like he doesn't know where he's standing in the class, to have him reach out to the teacher.
I'm just curious because I just found that out. And is it 15 school days or 15 days?
I'm not sure off the top of my head which one it is. Other questions? Mm-hmm. Skyward, yes, there are 2 different logins. Through the residency process, you set up your Skyward information. Schoology was emailed home, but if you don't have it or you forgot it, you can email Schoology at rbhs208.net, and they'll be able to reset that information or provide it for you. So even if you just go on the website and click Schoology, and then the email address is right there for you. Activity Pass would be done through the bookstore. So the original request is through the residency process. When you're paying your fees, you can designate whether or not you want it on there. But if it's not on there, it's not a problem. They can go to the business office and then get that printed on their ID. Mm-hmm.
2 questions. Chess Club is now competitive club. So when you join, your son or daughter joins, they have to go to the office to do the activity. Is that correct, or what is it?
You should just get billed for it.
And then the Hope, the mentoring program, because my son is communicating, how I can find out who is the actual mentor.
You can email John Passerella, who's coordinating that right now. You're welcome. Mm-hmm.
If you have to take advantage of the mentor mentee program, do you guys assign them with a first year student, or how does that go?
Yes, so it's done for sophomores, and yes, what happens, the process in that is we meet with the student, we have them fill out some questions about their strengths and their weaknesses, and then their past experiences at RB, and have a conversation with the student to learn a little bit more about their personality and who would be a good fit for them.
So that's only available to sophomores,
Correct.
not freshmen?
Correct.
What's available to freshmen in that regard?
Academic support would probably be the best fit for that. And so that's if your son or daughter has the space available in their day. It typically is a full period. Sometimes it's a half period if they have extended reading or just extended math. They use that 25 minutes to fill the rest of their period. We do. So we have 2 different academic support teachers. One who is here a little bit before school and one who stays a little bit after school. So sometimes we use that as a check-in or check-out process, so making sure your son or daughter has all of their assignments and things of that nature, get a head start on some of their homework. So if you're interested in that, you can just contact your son's guidance counselor, and they can set that up and let you know who's available, and they can introduce your student to the teacher and set that up for you. Mm-hmm.
I see on the daily bulletins about colleges visiting, and I see this here for seniors, but we do receive things from colleges telling my son that they will be here. Are juniors allowed to go to those as well, or is it only seniors?
I believe they're reserved for seniors, but if for some reason there's something that your son is very interested in, I'm sure you could reach out to student services and see if your son could attend that one. I saw another hand somewhere up over here. I don't know, unless I'm just imagining things. Uh-huh. So parent-teacher conferences are coming up on the 23rd, and during that day students are not in attendance, but your son or daughter is more than welcome to come with you if you'd like. And the way they're structured here is they're held in the gym, and there are no appointments. So you walk in and you pick up your son or daughter's report card. Hopefully that's not the first time you're seeing it. I'm sure all of you are checking on Skyward regularly, but that's the official report card that you pick up. And then you walk into the gym and you receive a map, and it's organized by department, and you just wait in line to see the teacher that you'd like to talk with. So that gives you the flexibility of meeting with all of the teachers or just the teachers that your son or daughter has a class that they're struggling with. And those go from 12 to 4 and I believe 5:30 to 8:30 on that night.
What if you are unable to attend on the 23rd? Is there another way that you could meet with your teachers?
I would say contact them. You can either do it beforehand or after and say that you were unable to meet, and then you can either set up a phone conference, or if you want to meet them face to face and set up a before school or after school meeting. I'm sure that would be okay. We also from time to time do have some teachers that, you know, there's a family emergency and can't attend, and so then they do, you know, reach out to parents that way. So it does happen, and so we do try to make sure that you have that contact with the parents that you want. And then in terms of the report cards are just mailed home if you can't attend parent-teacher conferences.
I have a question about Schoology, and I guess it kind of relates to executive function. I don't know if this is something that all teachers could do, but on Schoology, if you could almost put like a syllabus together, because a lot of kids are so involved in extracurricular activities and sports and things like that, that they really have to be very focused and have, you know, their weeks planned in advance. And it would just be helpful, I think, if you could see, like, you know, almost the entire semester, that you know when tests are coming up, big packets and things like that. I don't know if all teachers are using Schoology yet in that way.
I would say a majority of teachers are using Schoology in different capacities because it's the first year. And we had a handful of teachers pilot it last year, so not all of the faculty are as fluent as some of the faculty who piloted it. But yes, that is the intention, is for staff to be able, I don't know if they'd be able to do a whole semester, but staff will be able to utilize that calendar to post their assignments. Then a student can go on, and every class is color-coded, so they could see, oh, my math class is green, and I have a test coming up on Thursday. Look, I also have a test in Spanish, and I have a test in social studies, and I have a game the night before, so I really should be preparing 2 days in advance. So that is the intent, but with just providing teachers some training this summer, and then ongoing training and support throughout the school year, some teachers are more fluent with it than other teachers. Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to say that I really wish you had done this 3 years ago. I know you weren't here, but I think it would be really helpful if you have a freshman, because there's a lot of this that I was happy to know long ago.
Is there a possibility of sending that, is your presentation for the email blast or the PTO? Because it certainly is a lot of great information for all parents to have. It's out there somewhere. We know it's
Right.
out there, but a lot of parents are not.
And it's hard to navigate, and figure out.
Well, that's one of the reasons why RVTV is actually videoing this tonight, so that we will have that posted on the website, so that people can go on. You know, it's hard to make it to an evening meeting sometimes, so we'll have that. We'll also have the handout posted as well.
And one thing we're trying to do in the future is use this information from the PowerPoint to create a flyer to hand to freshmen and transfer students, so that all of the information is there in one spot, and kind of use that as a reference guide.
Because that was the one thing, like in your category with the additional support, where would we find that on the website? Like, I wasn't that familiar with like the HOPE program or the STAR program. Is that under student services, or how do you?
It's not necessarily in one specific location, and so that's why sometimes the guidance counselor is the best place to start. My son or daughter is struggling with this, what programs, what support do you have to help him or her? So that's why I think if we create a handout, at least then it's in one place, and then we can refer them to specific parts of the website.
Did you say that guidance counselors have a separate website, but it's linked to?
It's just a subsite of RBs, but it's very detailed, and so It's under the student tab. But we're also looking to try to put a quick link and pull it out so it's easier to find as well. But if you search student services in the search bar on the top right of the website, you'll be able to find it. And then from there, they have the student services website, and then they also have, I think it's called like a college and career planning website or something along those lines.
Would this be printable if we go to the website?
It's currently not posted on our website, but what I was going to do is save the presentation as a PDF so that I could also share it with Pam so that she could share it out in the same place that she's sharing out the video as well.
And to let you know too, one of the things that the PTO is trying to do too is like about every other meeting, have presentations like this. I think the next one is scheduled for January, and that's where we'll have student services here as well, so that they can have more information on that. And then again in March, we'll talk about summer enrichment opportunities, so that there's things for your students, opportunities to hear at RB as well as out in the community for volunteering, education, athletics, that kind of thing.
And that's another thing that, students don't even know what other students are doing in the summer, and there's so many great opportunities that students could take advantage of, but it's just also a matter of not knowing where to go to find them and what's available. So, well, thank you.
There are no other questions. All right, thank you.